On the outskirts of the old city stood a forgotten cemetery, buried beneath the darkness of centuries. Old tombstones were covered with lichen, and rotting trees created ominous shadows that stretched to the farthest corners of the cemetery. One day, on an inclement evening, a thick fog enveloped the cemetery like a shroud of death. The silence was so dense that it seemed as if time stood still. A lone lamp, flickering slowly, stood at the entrance, as if inviting the brave or the careless. A young woman named Anna, who had lost a loved one, decided to visit the cemetery in this darkness. She made her way among the graves, feeling the cold wind through her jacket. Suddenly, the lamp began to flicker even more intensely, and a shadow loomed from beneath the ancient steles, as if taking on a human form. Anna stopped, her heart sank. The figure of her dead brother appeared in the shadow. Through the fog his voice sounded like an echo from the past. "Anna, why did you forget me? Why did you leave me here in this place of darkness?" Terror froze in her veins as her brother raised his hand in her direction. She tried to back away, but her feet felt as if they had been forced to the ground. The figure approached faster and faster, and Anna's eyes flashed to the faces of the other souls who had also returned from the world of the dead. She screamed, and the lamp went out. Suddenly there was total darkness. Anna felt that something invisible was approaching her. Through the darkness came the whispers and moans of the dead. When the light returned, Anna was already outside the cemetery, with only a flickering lamp in her hands. From then on, she never dared to return to that cemetery again, but on dark nights, she could still hear the whispers of the departed and see the shadows looming from beneath the old headstones, reminding her that the line between the world of the living and the dead could be blurred and dangerous. Over the next few weeks, Anna suffered from nightmares and strange visions. More and more she withdrew into herself, becoming fearful and exhausted. Friends and family anxiously watched her decline, not knowing how to help her. One evening, just as the fog was beginning to thicken around the cemetery, Anna received a letter. There was no sender visible, only the address, to the cemetery, that light that dims. There was something strange and appealing about this message, and Anna, as if under the influence of an unknown force, decided to follow the directions. Once again she found herself in a forgotten cemetery, the lamp illuminating her path like a beacon in a sea of darkness. Shadows flickered around her, but this time she felt no fear. Step by step, she followed to the place where she saw her brother's figure. When she arrived at his grave, the ground beneath it began to shake, as if the heart of the cemetery had awakened from sleep. The shadows of others who had passed away began to rise from the ground, taking on the shapes of past lives. Among them was her brother, now glowing with a soft light. "Anna," he said, "you have brought me back to life, but this is not the end. We are brought here for a reason. Something ancient and dark is here, and it needs our help. We must help the departed find their rest." Anna was now a conduit between worlds. Together with the souls she called back to life, they began to fight the dark forces weaving around the cemetery. Their footsteps could be heard in the night, and in the shadows the struggle of light and darkness could be discerned. Thus, the forgotten cemetery became a place of salvation for those who had lost their way in search of peace. Anna became the guardian of the balance between the worlds, and everyone who found themselves in the other world knew that the cemetery had its own protector, a woman who dared to walk through the darkness and bring light back to those who had been lost. Evening after evening, Anna continued her unusual mission. She not only helped souls find peace, but also discovered more and more secrets hidden in the depths of the cemetery. It seemed that every gravestone held its own story, and every whisper of the wind sounded like a call for clues. One day, Anna discovered an ancient hidden cellar beneath one of the old mausoleums. In it, she found forgotten scrolls and manuscripts that testified to the dark rites performed here in ancient times. It seems that the cemetery was not only a place for burial, but also a magical trick that attracted powers from the other world. With each new discovery, the forces of darkness began to confront Anna more and more strongly. The arcane entities released by her and the souls sought to return to the light, but the dark shadows tried to keep them in their realm. As the full moon illuminated the cemetery, the battle between light and darkness flared with renewed vigor. Anna felt she needed to uncover the last secret to bring the cemetery back into balance. With the help of ancient scrolls, she learned of a sinister ritual that linked the place to ancient spirits hungry for power. She was to perform the final ritual to break the dark bonds and free the cemetery from its curse. The night of the final ritual had come. Anna stood at the heart of the cemetery, surrounded by the souls she had freed. Shadows of dark entities rose around her, but she did not waver. With an incantation taken from ancient scrolls, she began the ritual. Everything around her swirled in a whirlwind of light and darkness. The souls of the departed shimmered like stars in the heavens, and the dark shadows began to dissipate. When the last spell was cast, the cemetery lit up brightly, and the souls found their true rest. Anna, exhausted but feeling proud of her feat, remained standing in the center of the cemetery. Since then, she has been the guardian of this sacred place, protecting it from sinister forces and helping those who wander between worlds. Calm returned to the cemetery, and only occasionally could Anna's muffled footsteps be heard as she walked among the graves, continuing her difficult work between worlds. As the months and years passed, Anna remained an integral part of the cemetery. The souls grateful for her help served as invisible guards, ready to do battle with any manifestation of darkness. Tranquility once again possessed this sacred corner, and its secrets seemed buried in the past. One day, on an inclement evening, Anna met a strange wanderer wandering through the cemetery. This man, wrapped in darkness, told her of an ancient prophecy. It said that the time would come when a sacred place would need a guardian who could resist the forces of darkness and shed light on forgotten secrets. Anna realized that her time in this world was coming to an end. She taught the wanderer everything she knew, handing him her lamp, the symbol of her power. The next chapter in the history of the cemetery was left to the new keeper. Since then, Anna disappeared into the darkness, becoming one of the souls guarding the sacred place from the shadows. In a far corner of the cemetery, her lamp now twinkles like a star, reminding the living and the dead that there is a balance between light and darkness, and sometimes the brave among us can become star guides in this unknown world. Over time, the new guardian mastered his calling and became an integral part of the cemetery. He gained the power to remain steadfast against the dark forces and took it upon himself to care for those who had lost their place in the living. But the forces of darkness never completely disappeared. In the evenings, especially on nights of the full moon, the shadows would once again begin weaving their plots. The guardian felt he had a test to go through that would show if his strength was enough to keep the balance. One day, as the moon illuminated the graveyard, the dark forces began to attack with particular fury. The guardian felt the cold wind of darkness penetrate his bones, and the shadows flickered like ghosts seeking to return to the world of the living. At that moment Anna appeared, her lamp flickering brighter than ever. She became a luminous figure, an embodiment of ancient energy, and together with the guardian, they confronted the dark forces. The battle raged around them, and light and darkness collided in a spectacle that even the graveyard itself had not seen in a long time. With each passing moment, the light of the guardian and Anna grew stronger, and the shadows began to retreat. The defeated forces of darkness were dissipating, and once again the cemetery was bathed in the light of peace. Anna smiled at the new guardian and, shimmering, disappeared into the shadows, becoming another of the souls protecting this special corner from otherworldly forces. The guardian looked at the graves around him and felt that he had not been alone since. Anna, like so many other souls, had become part of this vast cemetery, living in its history and guardian of its secrets. The cemetery continued to exist as a place where light and darkness intertwine, and where ancient souls find their rest under the gaze of the night sky. Since that day, the cemetery, guarded by a new guardian, has come to symbolize the balance between light and darkness. The guardian, assuming his destiny, became a link between the worlds, sharing the fates of the departed and those who continued on their living journey. The evenings became calm, and the shadows, though still within the cemetery, did not take on the same ominous character. The guardian of the cemetery found that the dark forces that had seemingly vanished left behind traces in the form of ancient records and artifacts, adding to the rich history of this mysterious place. Every visitor to the cemetery felt the influence of its special aura. Many came to honor the departed, to find solace, or simply to spend time in thoughtful silence. The guardian became not only a protector, but also a guide between the two worlds, giving the understanding that death is not the end, but only a new beginning. In memory of Anna, every night the Guardian placed a lamp at her grave. Her soul, which had become part of the cemetery's energy, continued to flicker, reminding everyone that even in the darkest corners of the world, the light of hope can shine. Thus continued the history of the cemetery, where light and darkness forever struggle, creating an eternal dance between worlds. The Guardian, who had mastered his destiny, continued to protect this place where life and death intertwine, and where souls find their eternal refuge. Over the years, the cemetery became a holy place where the memory of the past was joined with the present. At sunset, when the sky was colored in the shades of fire, the Guardian stood on a dais, guarding the peace of the deceased. At this time, the lamp, which became the symbol of his authority, spread warmth and light throughout the cemetery. The Guardian brought light to every corner of the cemetery, illuminating the paths between the graves and creating a kind of labyrinth of memory. Visitors to the cemetery felt their souls fill with memories and respect for the departed. The shadows, though still present, were no longer a threat. They became part of the balance, strengthening the bond between the worlds. One night, on a night when the stars shone brighter than usual, strange visitors came to the cemetery. It turned out they were the souls of those who had been connected to the place in the past: scientists, artists, poets. They came to share their stories and give their perspective on the vast ocean of eternity. The Guardian, gathered among them, witnessed the meeting of two worlds: the living and the departed. The strange visitors left their mark in the form of mysterious murals and poems that began to blossom on old tombstones. So the cemetery became not only a place of peace, but also a platform where two worlds meet in eternal harmony. With each passing year, the cemetery grew richer in its history. New generations of keepers contributed, and each one left the mark of their time on this sacred piece of land. The cemetery was a place where the light of memory shone through the ages, and the shadows became just part of the vast dance between life and death. And so it went on forever. Time passed, but the cemetery remained an unchanged holy place where worlds met and time stood still in the dance of light and darkness. New guardians maintained the balance, warning against oblivion and giving the departed their well-deserved rest. The lampstand that became the legacy of each guardian shone brighter with each new dawn and dusk. It became a symbol of unity, connecting all generations past and to come. Now it carried only the light of memory, but also the light of the future. Each year, when new generations visited the cemetery, they brought with them their customs and traditions. The memory of the departed became an integral part of the culture and life of the town. Each guest coming to this sacred place left a drop of their history in the boundless ocean of memories. Once, on the night of a lunar eclipse, shadows from distant times came to the cemetery. They were the souls of those who had left this world in ancient times. They came to thank the Guardian for his devotion and protection passed down from generation to generation. The shadows disappeared in the light of the moon, but left behind incredible decorations and carvings that began to shimmer as the night absorbed the light. So the cemetery became a place where past and present, mysticism and reality intertwined in a continuous chorus, a reminder of the endless cycle of life and death. The Guardian, looking at these shining new marks in the history of the cemetery, felt his mission continue. He knew that his lamp would be a legacy to the next keeper, and the mysterious dance of light and darkness would continue, bringing peace to the departed and the wisdom of eternity to the living. Over the centuries, the cemetery became not only a place of rest, but also a center of spiritual power, attracting seekers of truth. People came not only to honor the memory of the departed, but also to enjoy the magic of this amazing place. The Guardian, who passed his lamp to the new Guardian, became the link between the times. He felt that his essence became part of the energy of the cemetery, and his spirit became a counselor to all who came here in search of answers. One day, deep into the night, a mysterious figure arrived at the cemetery. It was a wanderer from a distant world, seeking knowledge and power. The Guardian welcomed him and told him of the ancient stories hidden in every stone and shadow of the cemetery. The wanderer stayed in the cemetery, immersing himself in its secrets and rituals. He studied the old records and communed with the dark shadows, trying to unravel the mysteries of eternity. The Guardian became his mentor, unlocking ancient secrets and guiding him to the light that shone through the darkness. In time, the wanderer became the new Guardian, taking on the responsibility of keeping the balance of the cemetery. He brought his perspective and his traditions, adding to the history of this marvelous place. Thus the dance of light and darkness continued, enriching each new chapter in this never-ending saga. Over time, the cemetery became not only a crossroads of worlds, but also a gateway to understanding the essence of life and death. In its shadows lurked the answers to questions asked by sages and seekers of truth. The lamp of the new guardian illuminated the way for those who came here with a heavy heart or with a thirst for knowledge. Thus the cemetery became not only a place to worship the departed, but also a holy arena where life and death, past and future met, and where everyone who walked its paths became part of an eternal dance that continued in infinite harmony. Many years later, when the cemetery became an iconic place, not only truth seekers came, but also those in need of healing and peace. Tales of the cemetery's mysterious forces spread to all corners of the world, like an invisible beacon leading souls in search of answers. The guardian, sensing it was time for him to give way to a new guardian, gathered around him a gathering of souls he had helped bring back to life. It was an incredible arena of light, shadow and magic, where the souls of the past merged with the souls of the present. In that moment, a miracle happened. They merged into a single light that filled the air with invisible hope. The new guardian, who had assumed the sacred responsibility, took the lamp in his hands. From that moment on, he became the conduit between worlds, maintaining the balance in this marvelous place. The guardian was gone, but his presence remained in every corner of the cemetery, like a breath of antiquity. With the new guardian came new challenges. The dark shadows tried to renew their influence, but the new guardian, with the knowledge of his predecessors, became an even wiser guardian. He combined the powers of souls and the living, creating an invisible shield that reflected darkness and spread light. One day, when the heavens opened their starry gates, ancient souls appeared in the cemetery who remembered times even before the light of the first guardian's torch. They came to contribute to the eternal dance of life and death. The guardian felt that his time in the cemetery was coming to an end. Gathering the souls around him, he passed the torchlight to a new guardian and faded into the shadows, becoming part of the vast ocean of memories. Thus the life of the cemetery continued, like an eternal stream of time. Light and darkness, past and future, all merged in a continuous dance, creating a magic that tugged at the hearts of those who sought answers and peace. And so, each new day became a new page in the endless history of this sacred place.